What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Stadium Drive. It's week 12, round 2 of the Division I playoffs, and tonight we are in Region 3. We've got the Upper Arlington Golden Bears on the road, the 5 seed in Division I Region 3, at Olentangy Orange, the Pioneers, the number 4 seed. Will Ford here with Storied Rivals Sports Media. Thanks so much for making us part of your Football Friday night once again, as you have all season long. This is going to be a really good one here tonight at Olentangy Orange High School. These two teams played earlier on in the regular season in week 8, so just a few weeks ago, and Orange won that game 28-20 in a close one. Both teams finished the regular season at 8-2, and so both teams now 9-2 after wins in round 1 of the playoffs. But before we dive into this matchup here tonight in Division I, we also want to feature tonight a game in Division III. The Tri-Valley Scotties in the Muskingum Valley League won the MVL Big School Division Championship this year, 10-0 for the first time since 2014. And they got a win in round 1, but it was a dominant win, of course, as they've dominated, most of their games all year. But Keaton Hahn, over 200 yards receiving on just 7 catches. He had 3 touchdown receptions as well. Max Lyle only threw 3 incomplete passes, and he's just been rock solid all year, Max has, and he's establishing himself as one of, if not the greatest quarterback, not only in Tri-Valley's history, but in MVL history too, at least from a statistical standpoint. So it's Tri-Valley is set up, for a deep playoff run, and they've got the Dover Tornadoes tonight, who knocked off Granville, a 6 seed in Division III. Granville 9-1 finish to the regular season, and they were without their starting quarterback Beckett Long. But Dover, they were down 7 key players, 4 of which were on the defensive side of the football. So when you go into that game, you think it's kind of even. Dover's missing a lot of their defensive starters. Granville, starting a sophomore quarterback in a playoff game, not ideal, but still have talented players that can make up for it. But Dover shut out the Blue Aces 33-0, and now it sets up this Division III matchup tonight at Tri-Valley High School in Dresden at Jack Anderson Stadium, where the Scotties will look to move on to round 3, which was something they couldn't do last year. They couldn't get past Granville, So this Tri-Valley team loaded with a bunch of seniors. Keaton Hahn, like I said, 200 yards receiving. He's really been taking the top off the defense the last handful of weeks of the season. Max Lyle's been doing his thing, moving the ball extremely efficient. But Jaden Wallace eclipsed 100 yards rushing and found the end zone a couple of times as well in their dominant wins. So that's the key for Tri-Valley, is can they get that running game going and established? And Cam West talks about that on our show here that you'll see here in a few minutes. It's not so much that Jaden hasn't had a productive year. Maybe compared to last year, the numbers don't look the same. He should reach 1,000 yards on the season after this game tonight against Dover. But the thing is that defenses are keying in on Jaden. They're stopping the run first, and that's what has really allowed this passing game to explode this year with Max and Keaton and Ryan LaMonica and other guys getting involved as well. But let's hear from head coach Cam West of the Tri-Valley Scotties. 10-0. Huge win in week 11. Passing game was going, the running game was going, firing on all cylinders. And he talks about this matchup with the Dover Tornadoes, a team that once upon a time, Tri-Valley's first playoff appearance was against the Tornadoes. And this is, I believe, their 6th matchup over the course of the last 20 to 25 years. So pretty exciting. Here's head coach Cam West of the Tri-Valley Scotties live here on Stadium Drive, week 12, live on Facebook, X, and YouTube. All right, well, Cam West, Tri-Valley Scotties joining us going into round 2 of the Division III playoffs. Thanks, Cam, for your time as always, man. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and a very big win for you last week, obviously, and you dominated throughout the game. And Keaton Hahn, I don't know what you're feeding him, but 200 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns on just 7 catches. Max obviously does what he does, and he's super efficient and only threw 3 incompletions. But when you look at what Keaton's been able to do for you, it seems like the second half of the season, especially, just taking the top off the defense. How has he been able to do that?
Yeah, I think it's the way he practices. Keaton practices really hard. He has he has a real knack for obviously getting open, and he has really good hands. But I think the thing with Keaton is he's sneaky fast. He's so long that when you watch film on him, you're like, he's not moving real quick, but he's got long legs and he's a strider. And he sneaks up on you real quick, and he snuck up on a bunch of corners this year where they haven't opened soon enough, and he just runs right past them. And the crazy thing about Keaton is some of the things he's done in practice are, I mean, unbelievable. I mean, it seems like every single day he's making a Sports Center top 10 catch that if it was on film, I mean, it's some of the stuff he does. All the coaches just look at each other and we're like, wow. So, but he does that consistently, and he's done that for 3 years. And I'm happy for him that he's having such a fantastic year. And he's obviously a big play threat for us.
Yeah, and obviously that's awesome. That's an awesome stat line to see. But I think something that might be even more encouraging for you is Jane Wallace had a 100-yard game, which I feel like the run game, he had a great year, numbers wise last year, but the production maybe, although he's still talented, maybe the production's not quite as much there this year. But he had a 100-yard game, 2 touchdowns. I'm sure that was nice to see the running game, get more established, especially now that you're in playoff mode.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jaden, he's sneaking up. I think he's at 976 yards. So he'll have 1,000 yards rushing on the year, hopefully at the end of this week. And he scored 14 touchdowns, I think. So I think he had such a fantastic year in terms of numbers last year that this year looks a little skewed, and his numbers aren't what they were. But I think it's a mixture of teams are planning to stop him. And they know what he can do, and they're saying, you know what, we're gonna kind of load the box and stop the run. And luckily for us that we have answers kind of all over the place for teams that want to stop the run. If teams want to do that, we'll throw the ball. And if teams want to kind of back off and put 2 defenders over Keaton or even Ryan LaMonica, then we'll just run it. So we're kind of at a luxury that it's kind of pick your poison, what you want to stop with us.
Yeah. And we know how impressive Max is. And we've talked before, he's one of the great Tri-Valley and MVL quarterbacks that we've seen, but you were probably the first great Tri-Valley quarterback. And I want to know, I guess, and like dive deeper into like what you have bestowed upon Max, especially when you get into, playoff football. I mean, you never know when the last game is the last game. And he has just developed so well as a quarterback the last couple of years. What is it that you, as, the first great Tri-Valley quarterback and one of the all-time greats, what have you bestowed upon him over the course of his career?
Yeah, I mean, he's been an easy project in terms of Max is a worker. And that's kind of the first hurdle. You got to get a kid who really wants to be good and wants to kind of see how good he can be. And Max is that. And I knew early in Max's career, after his freshman year of high school, that, I mean, we threw the football every single day, 20 degrees, snowing. I mean, we were out on the field throwing the ball. And we had some kinks to work out his freshman year. He wasn't slinging it real well. And I'm not a quarterback guru by any stretch of the imagination. I believe in work, and I believe in doing things thousands of times and figuring it out. And I told Max, we're just going to throw so much that you're going to figure out how to throw and timing and understanding your arm. And he did that. So he did the work kind of on his own. And he's a kid that wants to see how good he can be. And I don't even think he's reached his potential yet. He's been it's amazing to think how much better this year he's been than last year, because last year he was absolutely unbelievable. But he's been better this year in terms of just timing and making the right decision. And we as coaches try to show him different looks at practice in terms of blitzes, showing guys, backing guys off, and we can't get him. Like he knows where to go with the football. He's really good at reading defenses, understanding coverages, and so I'm not going to take the credit for that. I think our quarterback coach Tyler McGee does a great job with coaching the quarterbacks, obviously, because he's had Max for 3 years, and Max has really grown under him. But Max is just a fun kid to coach, and statistically, he's going to go down as the best quarterback in Tri-Valley history. He's in the 90s and touchdown passes. He's going to be over 7,000 yards passing, and he's got one more record to break to have them all. So hopefully we can. I think he needs 400 more yards to break the career or the season passing record. So, and that's one that I have, and records are meant to be broken, and I want Max to break it. You know, I want him to have all the records at our school, and he's well on his way to doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Tornadoes are next. And maybe in one of the more surprising results from week 11 was that Dover shut out Granville. But Granville also, granted, they didn't have their quarterback who was suspended for that game. And so they lost that game 33-0. But Dover, obviously, like growing up for me at least, like when I was in school, like schools just feared Dover. They are just tough, physical, they bully you, and it's just almost like you just try to survive Dover week and just get out of there alive. And their defense forced, I think, 4 turnovers. They blocked a field goal for a touchdown. I mean, when you try to line up against their defense, I think they were down 4 defensive starters against Granville, but they still played extremely well defensively, given that there was a backup quarterback in the game and everything. But when you look at their defense and on the film and their physicality, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, we have some history with Dover here at Tri-Valley. Obviously, the first time we made the playoffs in 2006, our first playoff game was at Dover at Crater Stadium, and we got smoked. And then we signed a 4-year deal with them, played them 4 years in a row, and I think we won 2, they won 2. So there's definitely some history there. I think this will be our 6th matchup with them. So we know what they're about. And this Dover team is, I would say, different than Dover teams of the past in terms of they're not very big. Their athletes and their best players are small. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not good. They have some explosive athletes come to mind, explosive athletes that can score a touchdown anytime they touch the football on offense. And defensively, big enough up front. They're not gigantic, but move really well, very physical, very good tacklers. And I would say their team speed is the best that we've seen all year. So definitely a different Dover team in terms of they're not in empty and slinging it down the field a bunch like they used to do, but they're playing to their strengths. They're getting the ball to their playmakers in space, which tackling is going to be key. It's key every week, but when you're trying to tackle guys who are 5'8", 160 pounds and really fast,
Right,
and try to make you miss, it becomes a challenge. And I think tackling is one thing in football that you can never get too good at. So that's something we can always improve on. And we're really focusing on, we have to break down. We watched the Granville game. We've made it through the first half to this point, and they've missed probably 12 tackles already. So that's going to be a key for us defensively is tackling. And they make it hard because they're good with the ball in their hands, and they do a good job of getting their playmakers the ball in situations where they're in space, whether it be throwing screens to them, running jet, just running some crossers where they get them the ball quick. So it's definitely going to be a challenge. I'm not going to say that I'm surprised about the game last week because Dover's good, and they
of
bumped,
course.
they bumped from I think they were in Division II last year, if I can remember, or something. They were in our region.
Yeah.
So they bumped into the region, and they're always good, and they're well coached. Coach Schiff's been doing it for 30 plus years, and they're kind of a factory of football. So they kind of have a plan, and they do a really good job preparing. And obviously Granville not having a quarterback probably wasn't an ideal situation going into that game last week because he was a really good player. So it's going to be a challenge, and our kids know that. I guess the good thing about us is our kids really don't know anything about Dover. I ask them if they really knew, and they're like, no, don't really know much about them because we haven't played them in so long. So
Right.
we have that going for us in terms of our kids don't know what they don't know. So it's gonna be fun. And like you said earlier, the reality is it could be our last game. And if we don't play well, it will be in the playoffs. You don't play well in the playoffs, you turn the ball over, playing good teams, you're probably going to lose. So we're going to do everything we can. And our motto has been since the playoffs started just to fight for one more week together. So that's kind of our focus right now, fighting to make sure next week at this time we're getting ready for practice.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to end this interview, Coach. I always appreciate your time, man. Best of luck against Dover, and hopefully you guys keep moving on. You've just had an unbelievable year, and hopefully the success continues for you and the dogs.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Always a pleasure to talk to Cam West of the Tri-Valley Scotties, and they take on Dover tonight. But just to kind of recap last week for Tri-Valley, Max Lyle only threw the ball 17 times in their Week 11 win, 4 touchdown passes, 327 yards passing, 3 incompletions. He was 14 of 17. Keaton Hahn caught 7 of those passes for 201 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jaden Wallace found the end zone twice, rushing with 104 yards on the ground. But they're taking on a Dover team. Even though they were down 4 defensive starters last week, they still forced 4 turnovers against Granville. Granted, they were starting their backup sophomore quarterback with Beckett Long out due to suspension, but they still showed out defensively. They blocked a field goal for a touchdown. That was Dalen Clark. He had the field goal block. He also carried the ball 8 times for 80 yards, 7 receptions for 85 yards. He had 2 rushing touchdowns as well. Just kind of a do-it-all player out of the backfield and running between the tackles for the Tornadoes. And Jack Judkins, their quarterback, a smaller guy, only 5'7", 5'8", but 152 passing yards, carried the ball 7 times for 50 yards. As you heard Coach West say, that these guys are smaller, but they're really dynamic, really fast, and Tri-Valley is going to have their hands full tonight, as is Dover. I think that's going to be a really, really good game in Dresden, maybe the best matchup in Division III, at least in our coverage area for sure. But now let's get back to Olentangy Orange, Upper Arlington, 4 versus 5 in the Division I Region 3 playoffs. If we go back to Week 8, when these two teams played, Orange won 28-20. That was the final just a few weeks ago. Not much has changed between then and now. But talking to head coach Wes Schrader of the Pioneers, Orange has been a little turnover prone the last couple of weeks. They haven't taken care of the ball that well. They survived Olentangy, a game where Taron Thomas caught a 66-yard screen pass, took it all the way to the house. Go up late in the 4th quarter. Olentangy drives down, scores, and it's down to a 4th and 13, 4th and 14, under a minute left, and Orange gets a favorable pass interference call that goes their way. They're able to go down and score a touchdown with 9 seconds left and survive Olentangy to set up this rematch of Week 8. And if we just look at the numbers from that game as well, from a couple of notable players, the guy who scored the game-winning touchdown, Cohen Weaver, as well as Levi Davis against Upper Arlington in Week 8, that 28-20 win. Davis had 123 passing yards, a touchdown, but also nearly 200 yards rushing, 179 yards on the ground, and a rushing touchdown. Cohen Weaver had 107 yards, a $107, and 2 touchdowns against UA in Week 8. So those 2 guys are the impact guys on offense, but they also have tons of talented players on the perimeter as well. Will Musgrove, who plays corner but also wide receiver, he is outstanding. But those are the 2 guys that I think UA is going to look to stop tonight, given how successful they were against that defense in Week 8. But let's hear from head coach Wes Schrader of Olentangy Orange. Because it's hard to beat a team twice. And UA did, force a pick 6 against Levi in that game, kind of kept that game close. But can Orange beat them again? And I think it's going to be a really difficult thing to do, given that Coach Justin Buttermore is without a doubt the best defensive mind when it comes to scheming a defense in the state of Ohio, at least in my opinion, but I think a lot of people would agree with that. And how do you match up with him twice in around 4 or 5 weeks? And he's going to talk about that matchup, but also what his guys need to do to just not turn the ball over as much as they have in recent weeks, to give themselves a chance to knock off UA for the 2nd time this season. So here is head coach Wes Schrader, Olentangy Orange Pioneers, Stadium Drive, Week 12, and we're live here on Facebook, X, and YouTube.
Wes Schrader is joining us, Olentangy Orange football, going into Week 12, the second round of the Division I playoffs for Stadium Drive. And I always appreciate your time, Coach. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, man. And last week was a nail biter, I guess you could say, for you. It came down to the wire, and it was by definition, kind of survive in advance. And you got by Olentangy 21-17, came down to the final seconds. I know one of the big plays late in the fourth quarter was, Taron Thomas caught a screen pass, went 66 yards for a score, and then you get the ball back late after Olentangy scores, and you score with 9 seconds left. I'm sure that's just how you drove it up, right? It was probably a real heart racer.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've been in those moments a lot, so I mean, you get nervous, but I think the people, fans and parents, might get a little more nervous. Obviously, you have nerves and you're anxious, but whatever happens. You got to live with it. That screen was nice to Taron. They were bringing pressure on third down, and we had the opportunity to get out there and get it blocked up. And then we pretty fortunate on a fourth down call on our final drive. But outside of that, we moved the ball pretty well there in the fourth. We just we're starting to hopefully that springboards us into this week.
Yeah, definitely. Now that fourth down call, wasn't that like a fourth and long too, like a fourth and 13 or something like that? And you guys got a pass interference call that went your way? Yeah,
it was 4th and 14. We had a timeout. We were kind of going through what we wanted to do, where we wanted to attack, and the corner, the safety jumped on our low route, and the corner kind of let him go, and we had him by a couple steps, and the ball was up, and Gephardt came, and I think he made the play he had to make, and he just PI'd and gave us the first down. But if not, it had a chance. If we had a chance, we got behind him a little bit there. Could have went for a touchdown, but it obviously worked out for us to get that situation, and then get a couple more first downs and punched in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Either way, it worked out. What were your takeaways, I guess, from the film, from the game in totality? Because obviously it was a lower scoring game through most of the game until that fourth quarter. But like you said, hopefully this will springboard you into Upper Arlington this week. What were some of the takeaways of some of the things that you did well that, have you very encouraged about, this coming week?
We did a lot of things all right. We were, I thought we played hard and did the best we could, but it was, a couple weeks in a row where we turned the ball over too much. It's, going back to Liberty Week 10, I think, we had somewhere between we had 7 turnovers in 5 quarters, and we were very fortunate to win that game, Week 11. Obviously Olentangy is a really good team. And we were fortunate. What we did well, I think the kids just fought, and they knew what was at stake, and we put a drive together when we needed it, and but yeah, we got to start taking care of the ball better if we want to keep advancing. We know what UA is, and if we play like we have these last couple weeks, we'll be in for a world of hurt.
Yeah. Well. Speaking of UA, you did defeat them, in the regular season, Week 8, 28-20. That was a close one, but obviously it's difficult to beat a team, a second time around, especially if it's in a playoff atmosphere. But Baltimore's defense, as you know, it's kind of bend, don't break. They're not going to give up the big plays. They're going to make you drive, the length of the field to score touchdowns. What about this challenge this week? And, like you said, you need to clean up turnovers and whatnot. What about this challenge really excites you for Levi and your guys on offense?
It's the familiarity with the team in your league. There's pros and cons to it. For them and us, we know each other. Obviously you go against a Justin Baltimore defense. They're going to be sound in what they do. And, last time they played us, I made a pretty bad call, and we didn't, we threw a pick six right before half and put ourselves in a bad spot, So again, it goes back to that, playing sound football, we execute, and we make plays when we have the chance. We'll have a chance in the end. That's all we can ask for. We're going to have to play an extremely well game, extremely clean game to have a chance in this one. And, our kids know that. We know they're going to be disciplined. They're going to be tough. They're going to be physical. They're going to fly around. And, and they're going to be sound. And if we are not sound, we'll be in trouble. And if we play our game, we'll have a chance. It's simple as that.
I think you guys absolutely have a chance. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, UA has they kind of have a grinded out run game. I feel like they rely on the run game, and then they can hit you over the top with some deep balls down the field here and there. But like Jaden Chindavong and Andrew Theodore are kind of the two guys that kind of spearhead that rushing attack. What do you do to get off the field defensively so that way they're not eating up so much clock and you get more opportunities on offense? Like, what does your defense have to do to match up against that running game, but then also being prepared for those play action shots downfield to guys like Wally Swiney?
Yeah, that's what we have to. Well, Sweeney's too. He's
Sweeney.
Sweeney, yeah, he's a really good dude. He's a really good receiver, number 2. But 9's the one I think they want to stretch the field with, and we just got to know where he's at, and have guys in the right spot. And it sounds cliche, but it's getting aligned and executing and getting your eyes in the right spot and doing the things that you need to do to execute and get it done. So we know what they are. They're physical. They want to run the ball, control the clock, rely on their defense. And, their offense is good. They shift and motion and move a lot, and they'll get in different formations. And, last game, we both, us and UA both, had to convert a fourth and, a long 1 or 2 maybe in our own territory. So, one of those 2 plays go either of our ways. If we get to stop early in the game or they get to stop our first drive of the third quarter, it might be a different game. So, it's going to come down to a few plays like that. It's going to come down to, getting a stop when you need it and, and getting off the field when you have the chance.
Yeah, well, it's Orange UA round 2, man, and I think it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be a great game, and looking forward to seeing how it turns out. But thanks so much, man, for hopping on. As always, it's always just a pleasure to talk to you, and best of luck against UA, and hopefully you keep it surviving and advancing in these playoffs.
All right, appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Big thanks to West Schrader, Olentangy Orange. They managed to take down Olentangy in round 1 of the D1 playoffs, 21-17, walk it off, or almost walk it off, 9 seconds left, with Cohen scoring to win the game for the Pioneers. And now the challenge ahead is this UA Golden Bears football team that started kind of slow against Newark last week in week 11. They were down 12-0 to start that game, against a Newark team that has won more games than it has since 2005. This is the best Newark Wildcats squad that we've seen in a long time, almost 20 years. But they went up 12-0 on UA early, and it wasn't until in the second quarter when the Golden Bears were able to start moving the football, and they ended up taking the lead going into halftime, and it was Kyle Cox finding Trent Wolpert on some key downs, some third downs to move the chains, and then they were able to get the running game going with Jaden Chindavong, Alek Diller, and some other guys just to get the ball moving finally after that slow start. They ended up trailing 15-14 with a few minutes left in the third before they eventually took the lead going into the fourth quarter and held on to it for a 27-15 win. But UA needs to start much faster. They've had some slower starts the last couple of weeks, and Coach Buttermore said they need to start a little bit faster, especially in these playoff situations, playoff atmospheres, against, as you get further into the playoffs, better football teams. And Orange is a team they lost to because they started off a little bit slow. So they need to figure out how to get the ball rolling early, so that way they're not playing from behind. They're playing with a lead. And when they're playing with a lead, that running game eats up so much time, runs down the clock, and that's just where they're most successful, is when they can unleash that defense, when they have a lead, and they can utilize the running game. But the running game last week, one guy in particular made an impact, and that was Alek Diller. He had 2 rushing scores against Newark, 27-15 win, a game where they were down, like I said, 12-0 to start, and they were able to come back and win. The the game sealing touchdown was Kyle finding Wally Sweeney on a 33-yard score to put them up 27-15, won that game, and they were able to move on now here to round 2 in Olentangy Orange. But here is head coach Justin Buttermore of the Upper Arlington Golden Bears talking about this matchup. How does this team get off to better starts, establish the offense, the running game, the passing game, getting it working in unison a little bit sooner than they have been, but then matching up against Levi Davis for the second time. They had a little bit of success. They forced an interception, pick 6, but they weren't able to stop the run that well. So I think the key for them tonight is stopping the run with Cohen Weaver and also Levi using his legs, and then forcing Levi to make difficult decisions in the pass game, and then go from there. But it all starts tonight with stopping the run, and Justin Buttermore will tell you more about his defensive game plan for matching up against Levi, Cohen, Will, and the talented guys up front, especially in the trenches for the Pioneer offense. And it's a tough challenge, and his team was unable to do it once. Can they rebound? Can they redeem themselves for that regular season loss in week 8? Especially in crunch time, when Levi is almost assuredly going to have the ball in his hands on a 3rd or a 4th down late in the game if it's a 1-score game. How does he match up? And Coach Buttermore will tell you, you're on Stadium Drive, Week 12, Facebook, X, YouTube. Thanks so much for being here on all platforms.
Justin Buttermore, Upper Arlington Golden Bears, joining us on Stadium Drive for round 2 of the Division I playoffs. Thanks for being here, Coach, as always. It's always a joy to talk to you, man. And 27-15 win against Newark in Week 11, round 1. But you were down 12-0 early in that game in the first half, and then down 15-14 near the end of the third before you took the lead for good. But talk to me about the resilience of your guys to kind of battle through kind of the slow start in that first quarter. You finally started moving the chains in the second quarter, got on the scoreboard, and then you were able to, close out the Wildcats.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the start we were looking for, and unfortunately, we've had several of those starts this year where we just did not get off to a fast start, and it's been against good teams. And I've talked to our kids. That's not a recipe for winning in the playoffs. We were fortunate to to fight through some of that early. We kind of cleaned things up, and like I said, we're able to take the lead going into half, and then kind of get a couple scores there in the late third and fourth quarter to kind of get up 2 scores. But not really the recipe you want with the teams you have coming up on your schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it seemed like in that second quarter that really got things going. It was Kyle finding Trent Wolpert for some key first downs, and then you were finally able to kind of mix in the running game and get that going. And that was especially important, near the end of that game to kind of drain some clock and limit the opportunities for Newark. You also forced a turnover late as well. But was that the key, like that connection kind of getting the offense going?
Yeah, I think just being able to spread the ball around a little bit, it was key. I mean, we've been kind of hit and miss in terms of our execution, both in the run game and the pass game. And, I thought when we can get Trent and Wally the ball early, get them touches early, they're guys that can make big plays with the ball in their hands. And, probably too few times this year we've done that early. We've got to find a way, to give them chances early because they're really good players.
Absolutely. Yeah. And most teams only have one, great receiver to throw the ball to, but you've got 2. And now going into Olentangy Orange this week, a team that you lost to in week 8 in a close one, 28-20. But Orange, I feel like the last couple of weeks has been a little turnover prone, but they managed to survive Olentangy, came down to the final seconds. They made big plays when they really needed to, otherwise the game's over. But what in this game do you need to do to get the offense going sooner, against Orange?
Yeah, they're a really good team. I mean, I think, when we played in week 8, I thought that going in and you look at the last, I guess, 3 games since we've played them. And like you said, they've had a few turnovers. That's been kind of when they've struggled, that's been the struggle. But, Levi's just such a good player. I knew when that game was close last week, if you leave the game a 1-score game late, he finds a way to get the job done. He's just that kind of player. He has the ability to do it with his feet. and with his arm. And he did both last week. We have to do a much better job of stopping the run. I mean, they ran the ball right down our throat, to be honest with you. And I know the game ended up close, but it didn't feel that close. I thought they dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball throughout the game. And you're not going to beat them. If that happens again, we won't have a chance to win. So we've got to play better up front on both sides of the ball. We've got to prevent big plays, which we didn't really do the first time around on defense. And we've got to create some big plays on offense. I mean, they were really, like I said, I felt like dominated us in many ways, even though we were able to keep the score somewhat close with a pick six and a few different things. But we're going to have to play much, much better than we did week 8 if we're going to win.
Yeah, with that pick six and just forcing other negative plays, against that offense. I mean, was there a specific look in week 8 that maybe worked in particular against Levi, or was it just mixing it up? I mean, is it disguises? Is it blitzes? Is it different coverages? What do you throw at Levi to be able to, limit what he does as far as making big plays? But I guess, you also got to show different looks to try to stop the run too.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to mix it up. I mean, I think any good offense these days, if they know what you're going to be in on an every down basis, you're going to be in trouble. And, they've got enough one-on-one playmakers. Obviously, Levi is a great playmaker. The running back is a great playmaker, but they've got a couple of receivers that are outstanding as well. And so, when you leave them one-on-one, they're going to take their shots, and you've got to win some of those matchups, and they expect their guys to win those matchups. So, I think you've got to disguise things a little bit. You've got to find ways to give them different looks. But at the end of the day, like I said, I think their offensive line is really underrated. They did a good job the last time we played, and we created huge seams for the running back and for Levi. And, so it all starts there. We've got to find a way to play better.
Now, in the fourth quarter, when it gets to crunch time, and if it is a one-score game, which I imagine it will be, I imagine this will be close. I feel like if it's, a third or a fourth down, Wes is going to put the ball in Levi's hands, and he's going to let him do something. And I was at the Hilliard-Davidson game earlier in the year, and it was a 4th and 6, and it was just a quarterback keeper, and he took it for a touchdown. And to me, that felt like that was what was going to happen all the way. But like in those situations, are you putting a spy on Levi on a third down or a fourth down late in the game to make sure someone has eyeballs on him the whole time?
I mean, certainly there's some things you do where you want to keep eyeballs on them, but putting any single person to spy Levi, we have a few good athletes, but we don't have anybody that's going to really be able to, one-on-one in open space, be able to handle it. He's just that type of athlete. Like I said, we have athletes. The advantage always goes to the guy that's running the ball in that situation. I mean, I think it's about good team defense. You definitely have to keep eyeballs on him. They want the ball in his hands, and rightfully so in those situations. But week after week, I think people know it. And it's still very difficult to stop because, again, they've got enough athletes around him that if you bring everybody at him, he's going to find a way to dump it to somebody else.
Absolutely. And then the one thing that I think is cool about this game, and it was cool in week 8 too, but especially so in the playoffs, is kind of the connection between you and Wes, because you guys both coached at Granville, a handful of years back. And I just think that's a really unique story. I'm sure you're not necessarily thinking about that, at all. You're focused on winning a game and moving on to the third round of the playoffs. But is that kind of a cool thing, like in retrospect, when you maybe look back on this season, however it shakes out, that that connection between you two coaching at a school together, I think that's kind of a cool story.
Yeah, and I didn't know Wes at all prior to him taking the Granville job, but he and I talked several times on the transition and talked about the players, and it's been fun to watch. And I'm happy for him that he's at Orange now and having great success. I was incredibly happy at how he continued to and even improved Granville because those kids deserved it. A lot of kids that I had relationships and my kids had relationships with. And so I was very happy to see them, have the success they did. And like I said, I knew he wanted to kind of get back to the OCC where he had started. So it's been great to watch. I mean, I had no doubt that he would have success and it's been almost immediate. And like I said, I'm not surprised. He's won kind of everywhere he's been. So, it's been fun. And like I said, we talk now a lot more frequently than we did before. But it's great to see.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, Coach, I really appreciate you taking time to hype up Week 12, man. Upper Arlington and Olentangy Orange is going to be a good one. I'm going to be there doing a pregame show to give you guys some love, and I think it's going to be an outstanding playoff game, man. But thanks so much for your time, as always.
I appreciate it.
I think that's a pretty cool story, isn't it? You know, Justin Buttermore, Wes Schrader, both coached at Granville for a couple years, not on the same staff obviously, but Buttermore up until 2019, and then Wes the last couple of years. And funny that they didn't necessarily know each other that well or at all during that transition, but it's a pretty unique thing that they now both find themselves in the OCC and in a playoff matchup. Wes has found success almost instantly with these Pioneers here at Orange, and that super talented roster that he inherited, obviously. But it takes a special coach to carry on what Zeb did for a number of years and put this Orange team over the top, which it seems like he has. For Coach Buttermore, the success at Tri-Valley translated straight to Granville. And then after a few years, the leap to UA, and both of these coaches have just been remarkable over the years. They're two of the best coaches around, two of the best coaches that I know and that I've talked to. It's a pretty unique story. I think in retrospect, when you look back on this season, the connection between these two, both coaching at Granville with the Blue Aces. But before we wrap up the show tonight, we've got about 25 minutes until kickoff here at Olentangy Orange. Let's go through the other matchups in our coverage area, teams that we filmed throughout the year. And we'll start with games in Central and Western Ohio. So let's bring up the graphic for you. So 3 games up top on the top of your screen are Division I Region 2 games. We've got the number 2 Centerville Elks hosting Springboro, a 7 seed. Number 14 Dublin Kaufman pulled off a huge upset, and Amario Valeria Hudson 7 touchdowns last week in an upset win. They're going to be at number 6 Lebanon. Hilliard Bradley with an upset, looking to do it again against number 5 Hilliard Davidson. Then 3 games in the middle, all Division I Region 3. We've got UA Orange, of course, the game I'm at tonight. Olentangy Liberty, number 1 seed, hosting number 8 Groveport. And number 3 Gahanna hosting number 6 Olentangy Berlin. At the bottom of your screen, Grandview Heights, a 9-0 regular season. Their last game of the regular season was canceled, but they got right back to their winning ways in Week 11, and they play host to Colonel Crawford, a number 9 seed. And then the other side of our coverage area, East and Northeastern Ohio, to close the show. So the game we featured at the top, Tri-Valley, a 3 seed, at home. Dover coming to town, an 11 seed after upsetting Granville last week. That's Division 3, Region 11. In Division 4, Region 15, number 6 Logan Elm at number 3 New Lex. Division 5, Region 17, the Garaway Pirates, 8-2 regular season. The first time losing at least one regular season game in a long time. But a huge win in Week 11 last week. Now they go to number 4 Garfield. 2 games in Division 5, Region 19, and this one's interesting because if West Muskingum and Union Local both win these games, it would set up a rematch of the first round last year in Division 5, Region 19. But number 7 West M is at number 2 Fairland, and the Jets are hosting Wheelersburg, an 11 seed versus 14 seed. Wheelersburg knocking out Barnesville last week. That was massive. But that's going to be a really interesting, those 2 games are really interesting to watch in Division 5, Region 19. And then at the bottom, number 6 Dalton at number 3 Pymatuning Valley, Division 6, Region 21. And Ridgewood, after a slow start last week against Mechanicsburg. Mechanicsburg led all the way up until the 4th quarter, and Ridgewood was able to come out with a slim victory. They will host number 11 Newcomerstown, and that is an old rivalry that's being renewed tonight. Division 6, Region 23, and that wraps up all the games in our coverage area here for Week 12. 20 minutes till kickoff. Upper Arlington, Olentangy Orange. It's going to be a really good one. It's a little bit chilly. I'm going to get some hand warmers in my pockets, and we'll get ready to go here. But thanks for joining us for Stadium Drive through the first 11 weeks of the season and now Week 12. And we've got some great games on the schedule tonight, so make sure that you follow us on all the socials, especially on X, specifically there for score updates on all the games that you're looking to follow tonight. I'll be posting highlights with score updates throughout the night. as I can provide them. So make sure you follow us, because I feel like we're one of the state's leaders. We are one of the state's leaders as far as high school football coverage. So thanks so much for all of your support. And we'll see you in week 13 next Friday. Happy football, everyone. Stay safe out there. Have a wonderful evening, and stay warm as well. But take care.